Hi, and welcome to the Punk CX podcast. My name is Adrian Swinsko, and I'm an advisor, best-selling author, speaker, and general explorer when it comes to customer and employee experience. I'm really interested in figuring out what it takes to build organizations that produce better outcomes for both customers and employees. So with that in mind, I seek out and interview CEOs, entrepreneurs, business and tech leaders, authors and academics to uncover some clues about what it takes to build such an organization. Now, some of you may know the podcast as the Rare Business Podcast, but I decided to rename and rebrand the podcast recently. This is for a number of reasons. First one was to mirror the title of my book, Punk CX, which was published in June 2019. Two, because I'm a fan of punk music. And three, it's just more fun, right? Anyway, if this is your first time listening to one of these interviews, then hello and welcome. And please do dive into the archives at adrianswinsko.com, as I've now completed over 300 of these interviews in the last few years. If this is not your first time listening, then welcome back and thank you. Anyway, that's enough for me right now. Let's get into the interview. So welcome to the next edition of the Punk CX podcast. With me today, I have Victoria Wej. I think I pronounced that correct. She gives me the thumbs up. We're on a video, but even though you're only hearing this on audio, but it's Victoria Wej, who is the founder and CEO of Kinship Systems. Hey, Victoria, how are you?
Hey, very well. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Now, so for listeners and people that are not familiar with your work, can you give us a bit of a thumbnail sketch about yourself and the work that you do?
Sure. So first, maybe it's worth pointing out, I was born in Dublin, in Ireland, to Polish immigrant parents, and then grew up starting in the late 90s in Poland, going to an American school run by the U.S. Embassy in Warsaw, hence the American accent. I've only been living in the U.S. 3 years, so that always takes people by surprise.
Where's the Irish accent?
I know! The American school got rid of it. And then I lived in the UK, studied there at Cambridge, which was wonderful, and started my career in banking in London. But quickly saw I want to build companies. And it all started with my first idea for a startup. But at the time, actually, I was selling Christmas trees in Poland, tens of thousands of Christmas trees. And I would go to trade fairs around Europe, meeting potential clients. And that was kind of the beginnings of Kinship and the idea behind it. I would take people's business cards, staple in a notebook, write little notes, like very personalized notes, like, oh, their car broke down, they have 2 kids, little things, to build those relationships. But I kind of thought it was like, wow, old school to do it this way. I have an iPhone, but then I was focused on my first business. And so actually built that and sold that, then moved to Switzerland and sat down and realized after so many years of building a business that I've lost touch with a lot of people I really care about, both professionally and personally. And I was thinking how to get better at this. And I turned to the person in my life that's the most amazing at maintaining relationships. And that's my mother. She's a serial entrepreneur, just started another company. And she showed me her system. She has all these agendas, calendars, notebooks. She lugs out around a second bag with her. And I was like, wow, this is old school. But what if we did a digital version of that? So as an anthropologist, I became fascinated, started interviewing people that are amazing at relationships. Mm-hmm. That's, long story short, I found out lots of people have systems like Excel spreadsheets and places where they try to remember all this stuff that's so important to people they care about. But they hate the systems out there. So they needed something better, and I built it. And Kinship is a relationship management tool that anyone can download from the App Store, but we actually sell to a lot of companies that are in various relationship intensive spaces.
Perfect. Thank you for that. That's super interesting. Now, but before we get into any of that, the last 18 months, bit strange, bit weird. How have you been?
Wow. I think that's such a lovely question to ask. and really the key one, I mean, everyone's had such different experiences, but then also we've been kind of bonded by this experience, even globally. And
Hmm.
um, I, as for everyone, it's been tough. A lot of change, everything from like, closing down an office, becoming remote, to also I moved around, changed places. So it was definitely, stressful. And you never know, can you travel again? Can you not? I haven't seen my family for now it's going to be over a year.
Wow.
Yes, I'm definitely missing my siblings and my mom. I'm so happy to hear the borders are going to be lifted in the US. And so, yes, all of that, has been stressful. But I have a wonderful team and wonderful friends here, and we've supported each other. How about you? How have you been?
We've been all right, I mean, like many people, won't, I think everybody's going to have their own sort of scars coming out of this. But I'm glad to say that, you know, my immediate family and friends are all well. Um, some of our circle has been touched by, the virus, sometimes in some of the most some tragic ways. But my wife and I have fared very well, and I guess we've been very thankful that in when things initially locked down, we shared an office with a bunch of people, and they all decided to go work remotely. So there was nobody else there, so we had a place to go. So we could continue our get out of the house, walk to the office because it was safe and kind of easy to do. And at the same time, my wife, in her, I guess, in her prescience, had decided previously to take on an allotment, which is like a community garden thing. And so last year was the first growing season for us. So we were kind of like got stuck into that. And so we ended up having this kind of little triumvirate or three legs on a stool, which went home, office, allotment, home office, allotment, home office, allotment. And that was the thing that kind of got us through it. So it was thankful I was been busy with work. Thankful we had an office to go to, sort of a space to break that kind of pattern. Thankful that we had an outside space to go to where we could do things which were just different, and you can engage with a new community better outside at a safe distance and take your mind off all this stuff that's kind of going on. So, feel very fortunate, very grateful that we lucked upon a pattern, as it were, that served us well through that kind of period. So, and it meant that we fared pretty well compared to many people who weren't so lucky, and so we feel very fortunate. So, thank you for asking back.
Yeah, of
We're very
course.
well. So,
That's a
um,
new hobby to take on.
well, exactly, and so I mean, I guess my question about the kinship sort of thing. So I'm intrigued by because I've downloaded the app, and I know there's some stuff I need to kind of do to get it kind of really up and going. So I kind of really like the idea, but it sort of made me kind of like think about because it's effectively a CRM application in the truest of senses, right? Because CRM is not just about technology; it's actually customer relationship management, and I think that's the key thing: is that the management of relationships. And it's I just wanted to ask you, I mean, because the market is the CRM market is pretty bloody crowded, and so is there just a massive gap in the market or blind spot in the market that people aren't seeing that you wanted to try and kind of plug, or is this a really niche play, as it were?
So I started with saying, CRMs right now, they really focus on ones we use in companies. They focus on really mass marketing and pushing people through a pipeline. And as our users, you often say it's kind of ironic that relationship management is in their name because they
Mm,
feel like the relationship management part is not actually there. It's there for that transactional moment or that mass marketing. As we
right.
all know, mass marketing doesn't actually build relationships. And so kinship actually is for all that soft touch data. It's for actually staying in touch. You can set up in Kinship, to be touched every quarter or once a year with someone. It's also for all the data that just doesn't fit in a CRM system. A CRM system is so focused on structured data. And sure, I'll have your birthday. But what about knowing the fact that I just met a gentleman and his child is 16. So next year will be the last year of school. So getting a note, 1 year from now from me saying, hey, congratulations, you made it to the 12th grade.
Right.
It's those soft touch moments that are so important, and that doesn't live well in the CRM system. And so we do plug in as an interface to CRM. So we're an addition to a CRM, or we're an option for those that just can't afford a CRM.
Right. And so, I mean, I guess because I'm just thinking about it, because it feels to me that you're absolutely right. Many of the major CRM platforms, they're very business oriented. They're very wallet deal, wallet share of wallets, campaign sort of focus. And they, as you rightly say, they miss that sort of like the softer, unstructured kind of data. And so I guess your application sort of lends itself neatly to probably more high or industries that are more dependent on high touch relationships and longer term kind of relationships. And probably relationships that need fostering over a kind of a period of time. A bit like, I'd imagine, I think when we talked before, you talked about kind of real estate as being a key application where you get to the kind of point where, well, people aren't buying houses every day, right? So you have to take this is not a quarterly view or an annual view. This is kind of like sometimes decades that you can possibly stay in touch with kind of people. And so, I mean, I wanted to kind of really understand how it all kind of works. I mean, is it just about kind of paying attention and making notes and setting up reminders, or how does it actually kind of work?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I think you touched upon a great example of real estate agents, and they're amazing because yes, people don't buy houses every day, and also even in the commercial space, it takes them about 7 years sometimes of knowing someone to actually end up having a deal with them take
Right.
place. And yes, so what they do, like what they used to do, and now they have Kinship for it, is they put all these little notes in, or they'd use notebooks still, or they'd be using Excel spreadsheets. And yeah, they just take these little notes, they remind themselves when they've been last in touch with a person, and they try to manage that. In Kinship, we pull in actually those old Excel sheets they were using, so they don't start from zero. And then they add, so they can set those soft reminders, for example, for every person different, once a week, once a quarter, so forth, to be in touch. Because it's not only about being in touch for a deal with that person, but for referrals also. And then it's they can see their connection history, so their last phone calls to that person, text messages, emails, and then they can really decide on their own form fields and the things that are important to them. Whether one realtor remembers the refrigerator model, so he can send the water filter to his past clients to stay in touch and be top of mind that way.
Right.
Bakes great pies, so they're going to have a form field that says like, okay, their favorite pie is strawberry.
Yeah.
So it's very simple, and then they can add any kind of pictures. They could use voice transcription to take notes in any language, and really have all that people stuff in one place. And we know communication takes place in various places, but still text message is the number one app. So we've been able to, forwarding those text messages into Kinship, because sometimes someone may mention something in a text message, or you may be just texting someone and think about someone else, so you can just text it to Kinship and save that thought.
And is it just kind of like phone based kind of now? Is it there's the iOS platform, and then there's kind of like there's the Android. Is it on both platforms now?
We're only on iOS.
Okay.
We have a desktop version, a web browser, or a desktop version kind of in production, and then an Android version too. But because for major companies, we plug into their CRM system, and really most of the time we're on our phones. Someone says, "Oh, I'd love a desktop version," then they come back, they're like, "Actually, now I realize how much I'm on my phone."
Yeah.
It seems like it's also the place when we're interacting with people. We take notes probably on our phone. We look down. It's just like kind of the thing that's always with us, right?
Yeah. I think the kind of what's fascinating because I don't know if you remember, if you noticed, but there was a time when LinkedIn was starting to add these features.
Yeah.
And it looked like, and it was a little bit in stealth. And I can't remember how many years ago. This is probably about 6 or 7 years ago. And, or maybe more than that. I can't remember. I think it was pre the acquisition of LinkedIn by Microsoft. And some of these things, these features were starting. I'm like, oh, LinkedIn's going to become a CRM system. How cool is that? And I thought that was going to be amazing. And then they got acquired, and then it just disappeared. But it feels like you just naturally plugged those little kind of like little things. I mean, and so I completely get the idea from an individual perspective for networking or staying in touch with people, whether it's your deal making or your networking or your career building or kind of whatever you kind of might be, maybe just being a decent, better human being,
Yeah.
you know. Um, but I wanted to really understand a bit more about how firms really get value out of this, because I think it feels to me, I know that many salespeople in modern organizations, they struggle with the enterprise CRM data input and things because it doesn't capture a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, and it's more administrative rather than relationship based. So I wonder if you could bring this whole the kinship application, to life, and with maybe a couple of examples of firms that are sort of leveraging the tech and approach and what they're doing and how it kind of integrates and how it's benefited for them. Because I know that the audience that I have are, whilst they're all individuals and they're all doing their own sort of thing, they also work for enterprises or companies and stuff, and there will be kind of applications on has both sides of the coin.
Yes, definitely. I think you raised a good thing about, the problem that a lot of companies are facing with the CRM systems they have is exactly that, the lack of data input. And so they're trying to find a better interface, a better solution to that. And Kinship is really that solution. So where they benefit most is people start using, actually inputting the data, and it's coming and populating. And the stuff that makes sense for the CRM system goes in there. While the other stuff is, the user cares about and wants to follow up and keep to that. And by having more of this data, by understanding better customers, we have, for example, a jewelry store. Now they make much more precise kind of recommendations to their customers. So they know, like, the holiday is coming up. Like, oh, last year you bought your mother this charm. This other charm would match really well. So
Mhm.
make it much more precise than like kind of general newsletters.
Mhm.
Um, Definitely something where this data comes in handy and is useful on the company level. Other ways that also we found companies benefit, for example, Intercontinental is their general manager, for example, here in New York City. It's not just for the sales, the customer service side, it's actually also for her. She took over this massive hotel, suddenly had all these people that she works with, and
Right.
had to remember all of them. And so that's when one way hospitality and hospitality companies have been looking at Kinship is, let's make the teams feel better together. Let's
Ah, an internal CRM system.
yes, kind of be more thoughtful about each other. And that's even just enabling and giving a better tool. That's how companies benefit. And that they have this thoughtfulness in mind. So I think those are definitely some of the ways that they're seeing improvement.
I like it. I like it, the sort of like, particularly if you're taking on new jobs and you're new to an organization, the idea about, and, I don't know if there's such a thing, employee relationship management system. Is that a new thing? Is that a thing already? Who knows? Somebody should Google that. Um, but if it doesn't exist, you heard it here first. Um, so what's the kind of plans? Kind of like, I guess beyond world domination and being a new entry into the kind of the sort of the relationship development sort of space, the CRM sort of space. I mean, what does the future look like for Kinship?
Yeah, so world dominant. That's a nice way. Right now, we're rolling out with some great companies that are using it. And we've been enjoying that a lot. Not only now with companies, we're also looking at conferences where you can scan a QR code, get kinship, and it's populated with the people that are attending the conference. So you
Oh,
won't need a business card. You can actually just focus on the conversation and also not worry if you miss someone because you'll still know who was there and you can reach out afterwards. So a kind of a nice way to kind of bring back the focus to actually building the relationship rather than, oh, where's my business card? What's your phone number? All those things we don't need to do anymore.
and so does that, let me ask a question about that. So you could go to an event, scan a QR code, it would allow you to download the app, and then it's pre-populated with all the kind of people at the event. And if you already had the kinship, would it just then update the records?
So we'll create a new group. It knows that it's done in such a way that it knows that you already have kinship,
Right.
opens and populates it in the new group. So, for example, if it was XYZ Punk CX event, it'll be Punk CX 2021. And that'll be a group because you can group people in kinship
Okay.
and all will end up under that group.
Nice. So like it's a shortcut to kind of keeping in touch with people and connecting with people. Nice. That's super cool. So Victoria, I think it's a really, I think it's a fascinating and different sort of application in a space which, quite frankly, can sometimes feel a little bit staid and all about records and campaigns and transactions and things. And so I really like, it's a very refreshing approach to kind of to almost like double down on the relationships and actually focus on the relationships and also focus on the kind of people that what people need and what people want in particular, particularly in industries that are very heavy on relationships and something that might be more aligned to, particularly salespeople or lead generators or people in biz dev that need that. And so I think it's it's a really interesting thing. I must admit, I'm never good at that sort of admin about getting started. It is on my phone and it is on my to-do list to get kind of going. So I will get there. But before we talk about my deficiencies or we talk any more about my deficiencies, is there anything else you want to kind of add about kind of kinship and things that we've kind of missed out before I wanted to get your opinion on just the market in general.
Well, to your point about, getting started in kinship, one thing that I really loved, and this is something one of our users came up with, they said, it's very important to meditate on your relationships. With kinship, you get kind of a fresh start.
Mhm.
So their recommendation, and this is ours too, is kind of think, what do you want to use kinship for? Do you want to pull in everyone from your contacts? Or do you want to kind of start afresh and really like know who you want to focus? Is the first 100 people, only 25 people? Is it as a VC, they want to focus on their LPs only in kinship, or someone else, entrepreneurs on their investors? Or, we also do have people that pull in 23,000 contacts and they can manage all those. And they're amazing.
They are
So,
machines.
yes, they are fabulous. I'm learning from them. So I think it's that moment, and I think you should take your time. I think relationships mean so much. To your point, they can help us get a job. Harvard's longest clinical study shows that the depth of your relationship, the quality of your relationships, will determine how healthy, happy, and successful you are in life. So it's a serious decision, an element of your life.
Well, absolutely. And I think it's, because I wanted to kind of ask you about just the general kind of your view of the service and experience sort of space right now. And particularly when, much of the space is dominated by, technology of different types, particularly artificial intelligence and so on and so forth. I mean, from your perspective, what does the future of service and experience sort of look like? And what are some of the key challenges that we think that lie ahead that we're going to have to navigate?
I think one of the things is customers are going to have higher and higher expectations. And I think one of the big challenges many companies will face, and I think we kind of saw that during the pandemic, the amount of newsletters we got, it's out of control and they're not precise at all. And I'm getting a newsletter for a lamp that a promotion for a lamp I already bought.
Mhm.
So I really think it's going to be very tough, but also something that's possible is for all these companies to be thinking of their customer service and making sure that their communication with clients is more precise
Mm-hmm.
and matches what they've already purchased at their company, takes into account certain elements, gives good recommendations that matches those other purchases. That's actually helpful and not more junk. Um,
Yeah.
and I think customers want to feel this personalized touch. And if we're going to use AI and they know that, or machine learning be in the background, then they expect it to be high quality and to make actually quite few mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also somewhere where kinship is playing a role, is to say, gather this data. If you're going to gift as a bank, like a major international bank, those important clients, don't gift them all the same chocolates. Find out
Right.
which like chocolate or something else, or are lactose intolerant. That thoughtfulness, I think clients are going to be expecting more and more on various levels of the stores they visit.
Yeah, no, because it always strikes me that kind of when people talk about personalization, then it can sometimes get tripped up by the next word or the next two words when they talk about at scale. And then you just go, I'm not sure there's sometimes those two things really, people have really figured out what those two things kind of like mean, kind of when you go together. I recognize when you're a big brand and you've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions of different customers, that doing things efficiently at scale is important. But to your point, it's like if you do them clumsily, then it potentially creates more of an impression and the wrong type of impression than actually not doing it at all.
Yeah.
And so actually kind of adding a bit more sophistication into there, I think is going to be kind of very kind of welcome.
Mostly when clients know they've collected this data, it's like, what chair I bought or what rug, you can start setting up algorithms for that,
Mhm.
and recommendations and, your collection. And I think that's, I think people will be expecting a lot.
Mhm. And so you're experienced in building kind of businesses. It seems to run in the family. And from your experience, if I was to say to you, the audience, they always like kind of good advice or good recommendations. So say somebody's listening to this and or reading the highlights and they think, I really want to improve the service or experience that I deliver to my customers. Like based on your experience and your insight, what would be your best piece of advice or best two bits of advice, let's say?
My best piece of advice, and the one I also listened, is always number one, listen to your customers and really listen and ask questions, and really the focus should be when you're selling a product or when you're interacting. And when I ran restaurants, my first startup was restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
I built a healthy fast food restaurant chain in Poland to 12 locations. For me, the most important was spending time and talking to my customers, hearing what they like, seeing if they finished the meal. They didn't. Just observing them. And that's really key. And whatever features we add, whatever things we're changing, we are really taking in as much information and really hearing what are the needs. And you'll learn so much, but you'll also get great feedback on where not to focus and where not to put energy. So listen. I think listen is the number one thing.
Perfect. Thank you. Great advice. So before we go, this is the part where I kind of indulge myself in my what I'm calling my longitudinal social research project. Because so what I've been doing ever since I published Punk CX back in 2019 is I've been doing this ongoing word association and research where been asking everybody that I've been speaking to on the podcast the two questions. So if you're ready, I'm going to ask question number one.
I'm ready.
So what one word do you think would best describe a more punk approach to customer experience?
Um, More punk. I would say very simply simple, incredible experience delivery. I think that's kind of
I mean, that's technically five, but that's fine.
simplicity.
There you go.
And what company or brand do you think epitomizes that more of a sort of a punk CX ethos, and why?
Yeah. When I think of brands and that just, have that incredible customer experience, I think Net-a-Porter comes to my mind straight away.
Okay.
I
And
think
is that because
it's just every element across the board. It's like to the point. They think ahead of what the customer will want next. The way they evolve their customer experience. I mean, I really think it's hard to beat them.
right? It just goes almost a bit like it feels to me that I'm not really that familiar with them. I know of them, but I've never really kind of bought anything from them. But it seems to me that what you're saying is that they're they pay attention to all facets, and it's
Yeah.
almost like everything is important. No dot is no i's left undotted, or no t left kind of crossed, and all these different sort of things. It's the small things really matter, and they kind of drive through right to the very end.
But without overcomplicating it,
Right.
keeping things really simple. It's from every element, whether it's using their app, choosing the products, and then getting great suggestions that are all very simply mapped out, then ordering it, which takes a click, and having the delivery perfectly on time, to then if you do end up needing customer service, whether it's their chat or calling them, everything runs so smoothly. It's a pleasure. Like, I actually think you get like positive reinforcement because you're like, wow, life's so easy.
So brilliant. Thank you. That's a great example. And I'm pretty sure I haven't actually had that one before. So that's great. So, Victoria, where can people find out more about Kinship?
Well, you can definitely find us in the App Store. Just type in Kinship, and we're there. And we also have a website, heykinship.com, where you can find out some more. And of course, if you download the app, there's even an email to me. So feel free to reach out to me.
Even better. Thank you so much. So, Victoria, I just want to say thank you for bringing relationships back to the fore in the CRM sort of space. So adding a bit of a kind of like a soft and a personal touch to kind of like what we're doing, which is can sometimes feel a very mechanistic approach to things. So I congratulate you on that, and I want to wish you well on the journey kind of going forward. And finally, just thank you for sharing some of your time and insight and expertise with us today. That's been tremendous.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I love your podcast. And yes, it was such a pleasure to speak to you.
Well, that was cool. I hope you enjoyed it. I did, and I always do actually, because I always learn something new when I speak to some of these amazing kind of people. And it's always something new that I can incorporate into my writing, speaking, workshops, and other sort of advisory work that I do. Now, if you're interested in learning about any of that sort of stuff, then you can find out more about how I work with clients over at adrianswinscoe.com. But one final thing before I go, please consider heading over to iTunes or Spotify or whichever podcast platform you choose to use, and do leave a review. Every little helps, as they say. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you for listening, and do tune in again soon. All the very best. Cheers. Bye.